Welcome to Ali Fitness Podcast, a weekly production all about bringing health into fitness. Today, we're talking to Maneesh Sethi. Who is Maneesh Sethi, you ask? Or perhaps you don't, if you're like me and have seen the most watched Shark Tank pitch on YouTube. In fact, I remember first finding out about Maneesh when I was watching Shark Tank and he came on. So he's the founder of Pavlok and Shot Clock, and these help people change their habits for good. So in 2008, Maneesh took a 2-year break, I believe, from studying at Stanford to travel, and he started hackthesystem.com, a travel blog about credit card hacking digital nomads. In 2012, his article went viral. It was titled, "Why I Hired a Girl on Craigslist to Slap Me in the Face and How It Quadrupled My Productivity." And just on that title, I had to find out more. So naturally, in 2013, he took that slapping idea to start a company that has earned almost 8 figures in revenue, building devices that use psychology and sensory stimuli to help you change habits and wake up early. So that company's helped over 75,000 customers wake up in the morning, reduce cravings, quit smoking, and defend against distractions. And therefore, essentially, he's helped a lot of people get fitter and healthier. Maneesh, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Wow. Well, this show is all about bringing health into fitness. So before we get into the products, I'd love to ask you how important sort of you think fit and healthy is, or being fit and healthy, and what you do to maintain that if you do sort of think it's important.
Sure. I think it's always important to define the word important. So other people have different goals, and importance towards something requires like an external metric. I think probably a lot of your listeners are trying to live a healthy life, trying to live longer, trying to build their business, trying to be happier, trying to reduce any sort of negative thoughts, and towards being, happier, and towards being like able to live longer and being able to do and produce more. I think that obviously living fit and healthy helps you do those things. I'm always very, very strange about when I talk about words like these, because like even the word fit and the word healthy means two very different things. I mean, look at marathon runners versus sprinters. They look very different, and yet I don't think anybody would claim a marathon runner is unhealthy. And so I found that for most of our users, for most of the people that I've worked with, over 75,000 people, there are 6 specific habits that really fundamentally change everything for them. And to me, I always try to incorporate these 6 specific habits as important ways of living my life. So those 6 habits include, by far the most important is sleeping well. So average sleep, at least 7 hours a night. Eating fairly healthy, exercising relatively, 3 or so times a week. Having a conversation with somebody that you like every day. Meditating every day, and drinking water at least 2 liters a day. I found that those 6 habits are kind of the core habits that almost every single person, once they start doing it, their lives start to get revolutionized. And I try to incorporate all those into my daily routine. Cool.
And you mentioned eating healthily. What does that look like for you?
For me, I found that I operate best when I'm on a keto diet or a very low carb diet. That works best for me. So I tend to eat intermittent fasting. I eat between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. And I tend to eat mostly meats and vegetables with low carb counts. I'm not always perfect about that, but I definitely do. That's definitely the way I eat.
Awesome. And the 3 days a week that you exercise, what sort of time and intensity do you put into those?
I follow strong lifts, the 5x5 workout. So it's basically I put in about an hour. I do 5-minute sprints, interval sprints, and then I do about 45 minutes of barbell lifts.
Great. And how long have you been doing that type of training for?
I do it off and on. I did it for a full year in 2014. I've been doing it for the last 8 months right now.
And here's a question for you. When you say 7 hours sleep, so if you, for whatever reason, go to bed early and you've got to wake up in order to get your training session in, knowing that you're not going to get your 7 hours sleep, do you train or you sleep?
I've been using a couple wearables. So I use my wearable, the Pavlok, to track my sleep, and I use the Oura Ring wearable. The Oura Ring gives really cool HRV levels. So it gives me a rating of my heart rate variability. And typically, if my heart rate variability is above a 70, I think it's a 70% is how they measure it in the app, then I do train. And if it's below, I don't.
So you're talking about like your 70 readiness score?
Yeah, my readiness score.
Okay, so you just based it on that, even if it's telling you haven't got enough REM sleep or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll definitely lift light if I'm feeling poor.
Got you. Awesome. Yeah, so we're big advocates of the Oura Ring as well. But what I really want to talk to you about is the Pavlok, or actually Pavlok 2, I believe now. So tell us about Pavlok and how it works, and I guess in detail as well, and what sort of results you're getting with your clients.
Sure. So we always position it like other wearables track what you do, and Pavlok's focus is to change what you do. I noticed very early on when I had the idea, I think you mentioned this, that I was having a lot of trouble writing and getting myself to stay productive. So I did an experiment on my blog where I hired somebody to follow me around, and every time I wasted time online, this person would slap me in the face. It was pretty funny, and every time I was stopped writing, she would look at me and be like, Maneesh, come on, get back to work.
I so wish that was my job.
Yeah, you're welcome to. I mean, I'm looking for another one, so there you go.
Sign me up, sign me up. You're going to have a pretty red face, though.
Yeah, well, I'll probably be productive. What happened is I only got slapped 2 or 3 times because the act of having an accountability partner plus somebody I was committing to doing tasks with fundamentally changed the way that I worked. So in less than 5 days, I wrote almost 2 months of content. I was 98% productive, as according to a app called Rescue Time I was using. And I noticed that the act of having somebody that was holding me accountable in the moment fundamentally changed the way that I did stuff. So I wrote a blog post about this that went super viral. I was all over the internet. And for about 3 days, I was like famous. And 3 days later, I was a nobody again. And I said, how do I make another article that goes viral about the same concept? What if I took a dog collar and rewrote it so that every time I went on Facebook, it would give me a zap? I put together a little prototype with a friend, and then I thought to myself, this is actually really interesting. There's a million wearables that track what I do, but this one's actually changing what I do. Maybe this is bigger than a funny blog post. Maybe this is a real company. And so that's still the core value of Pavlok, which is how do we get people to actually commit to doing tasks and then do those tasks? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what's sort of, how does it work, I guess, and what's the science behind it?
Sure. So my background is in habit psychology. And one of the big things I learned is that people are more motivated by negative reinforcers than positive reinforcers. And specifically, what we did is we created this model. But long story short, the way to change habits for good we differentiate them into 3 types of habits. So one is breaking bad habits, one is forming good habits, and one is waking up or being alert. And so we started off with just creating a product that could do sort of anything. It's a modular, it's a wearable wristband. You can wear it on your wrist. Some people wear it on their neck or on their arm. And the wristband is able to vibrate, beep, or release electrical stimuli when told to. That's all it is. If you look at a dog collar, it works the same way. But when you start integrating it with smart technology, remote controls, and with our habit psychology, you start to get massive results. So the first thing we had, which was a breakthrough, was discovering the power of Pavlovian associative conditioning. This is something that's very useful for breaking bad habits, not as much for forming good ones. So we found that a lot of people probably listen to this have maybe gotten sick at a restaurant or maybe drank too much tequila one night and got really sick. And overnight, they just never like that type of alcohol again, or they never want to eat that food or at that restaurant again. It's pretty interesting because in one night, a habit that you used to have instantly changes. We looked into the literature and found that this is something called aversion or aversive conditioning. And we realized that aversive conditioning or aversions can be created by either nausea or electric shock. So we got very interested in the process of creating habit cessation using aversive conditioning. And we found a bunch of literature on when this was used pretty commonly in the 1980s and the early 1990s. And what we found is that like back then, these doctors would bring patients into a room and they'd have them smoke cigarettes. And at every puff of the cigarette, they'd have them get an electric zap. They would bring the cigarette to their mouth and they would get a zap. They would bring it back to their mouth and they would get a zap. They would use cognitive behavioral therapy at the same time, telling them like, imagine how gross it smells that you're smoking cigarettes. Imagine other people suffering because of how bad you smell while they were receiving these zaps. The trick was it's not because of the smoking, it's while the smoking is happening. Does that make sense? Slightly. It's not a punisher, it's an association. What happens is that within 5 days, these smokers in these studies from the 1980s and 90s had completely stopped smoking. And back at a 6-month and a 1-year follow-up, fewer than half had touched a cigarette. Those numbers are astronomical compared to nicotine patches, for example, which had a 7.5% efficacy rate. We were finding 50 to 60% efficacy rates. And so we started retesting these on our users for quitting smoking, for quitting sugar, for quitting nail biting, where we basically have them do the behavior for 5 days while they receive a zap. They're going to want to put the product down, but they have to stick through with it for 5 minutes. What happens is that these users very rapidly become aware of when they're doing these behaviors, and within a few days stop wanting to do them altogether. Our results have consistently been about 50% of users at a 6-month follow-up continue to not do the behavior. So those are smoking, nail biting, hair picking, hair scratching, eating a specific type of food, drinking a specific type of alcohol, etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So in the same way then, would it work? So for example, you just get them to overdose on that particular food, like you said in your example, and then they don't actually want to eat it again. Is that sort of a similar thing, or is that a
similar thing? Yeah, no, very similar.
So I remember back when I was young, my friend decided that he wanted to start smoking, and his mum said, okay, and bought him a packet of cigarettes and made him smoke them all really quickly, and he never smoked again and actually threw up.
Yep,
so
exactly.
in that respect, then why don't you just get people to overdose on whatever it is that they're addicted to?
Well, we have them do that as part of the process. So when they're smoking cigarettes, they're quick puffing, so it becomes very unpleasant. So you by associating the nausea plus the zap plus the cognitive behavioral thinking, it becomes kind of an all-in-one solution that happens very rapidly.
Right. And how powerful is the zap?
So you set the level. At low levels, it feels just like a tap. You barely feel it. It feels like someone nudging your shoulder. At high levels, it can be, very startling. I don't think it's painful as much as it is unpleasant and surprising. But you set the level, and the more powerful you set it, the faster the habit tends to reduce.
Okay, so talk us through a day in the life with the Pavlok.
Sure. Sure. It depends on your habits here. So for breaking a bad habit, it's really simple. You do the process for 5 to 10 days. You keep it near you in case you have any cravings, and then you press the button manually if you have any cravings, and that's it. After about 2 or so weeks, probably should keep it with you, but you probably won't need it anymore. Most users will quit on their own. Good.
So the watch isn't quite smart enough yet to actually zap itself, knowing that the food or the thing that you're doing is the thing that you shouldn't be doing.
So we have hand motion detection. We can tell if you're smoking cigarettes or biting your nails or picking or scratching your hair. We obviously can't tell if you're eating a cookie versus eating salad, but we can tell that you wanted to only eat between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. and you're eating at 2:30 p.m. Okay. So we are able to reflect those. However, those are usually typically not needed for bad habit cessation. We recommend users go through the manual process because there's a psychological twist. If it zaps you, you kind of feel like it's the enemy. But if you zap yourself, you kind of feel like it's a tool. And that tool kind of, proactivity. It makes it so it's like it becomes a helpful benefit, not something you resist. So that what we usually do is we have users, like, for example, with nail biters, we'll have them do the 5-day process manually, and then they'll keep it on them with the hand motion tracking, which will give them a reminder in case it happens. It'll vibrate first, and then it beeps, and then it zaps, so they have plenty of time to stop. But that's it. For forming good habits, it's a little different. Forming good habits is it's tracked through integrations on the app, as well as an accountability partner or a coaching program. So we have a coach who can hold you accountable for specific tasks you want to commit to each day. So what's a good example here? Let's say we have a gratitude journal app, which is pretty popular. So people fill out a gratitude journal in our app, and most of them have a goal of doing 3 gratitude entries a day. So we started to notice that people would unlock this gratitude journal, and they would actually, very few, only 2% would actually fill it out and complete it. So we looked at habit psychology and said, how can we create this gratitude journal to have a higher efficacy rate? And we realized that we needed a negative reinforcer of fear of loss and a positive reinforcer of potential for reward in order to make this happen. This is a forming habit product. And so what we did is we created a betting pool in the app. So we have a few thousand users who are betting between $1 and $10 a day. And every day that they fail to do their gratitude journal, they'll lose that bet. But every time they do succeed with it, they'll win back their bet plus money from the people who failed. Does that make sense?
Great. Yeah.
So they actually earn money for doing positive habits. So in the same way, we're releasing this in the next 3 to 6 months with forming good habits like fitness. You take a photo of yourself at the gym on days that you commit to it. And if you fail, you lose $10, but if you succeed, you might win 15 to 20 bucks. So you actually get paid to do healthy habits. So that's kind of our forming habit process. Actually, betting pools tend to be the simplest structure. The device itself is useful as kind of a reminder tool, but it's not concretely necessary. Simply go to the gym, take a photo at the gym, and you win.
And how many other apps do you have within this? So you mentioned the gratitude journal.
Yeah, we have like probably 12 to 15. We have a gratitude journal. We have a morning routine app. We have an evening routine app. We have a lot of sleep tracking apps and courses about sleeping and habits. We have a fun little game called Zappy Bird. It's like Flappy Bird, but you get zapped every time you die. That's kind of just a little fun project, little Easter egg we threw in there. And then we have our coaching app, which is kind of one of my favorite things. We found that a lot of users were benefiting from having an actual human being who holds them accountable. So we created a to-do list that's integrated with an actual human. And you commit each day to the human what you're going to do, and the human holds you accountable, basically vibrating, beeping, and zapping if you don't stay accountable, if you don't hit your goals.
So the human on the other end, the coach, actually creates the zap?
Yeah, they can send you the signals. Absolutely.
Right. Excellent.
So we've been using that. The coaching program is actually pretty fun. We launched it about 6 months ago. It's targeted for entrepreneurs. We found that entrepreneurs have a lot of goals that they want to set for themselves, but they don't always have somebody who keeps them like a boss to hold them accountable. So we created a thing called Productive Entrepreneur. It's a coaching program by Pavlok, where you work with a coach to kind of solidify based on your personality type and your energy cycles exactly what you should be doing and when of the day you should be doing these things. Often we'll take like entrepreneurs who are trying to build a service-based business and often spend most of their day being reactive and answering questions from their team, but rarely have time to do things that are proactive and working in business. And our coaches will consistently help them take a step back and focus on getting specific tasks done, like getting all the emails answered and everything done in concrete, finite 20-minute sessions, before 10 a.m. And then focusing on outbound business building activities after 10 a.m., things like booking sales calls. And we have a really good example. Just like I think about a month ago, one of our users used to have a ton of work where he built an SEO business for clients and was finding that he was spending his entire day answering questions and fixing sales pages and all this other stuff for his clients. So we got him to start to start focusing on doing his work in the morning, starting at 8 a.m. He would do these 20-minute concrete sessions with our coach. The coach would say, "What are you working on for the next 20 minutes? Great, get started." He would do those tasks for 20 minutes at a time for about 2 hours. And by the end of 2 hours, by 10 a.m., he was completely done with everything he used to do by 8 p.m. So now he had so much time that he started booking sales calls. He started trying to actually find new leads. And it only took 3 weeks before he was closing 6-figure deals. I think he's closed 2 6-figure deals in less than 2 months. It's like massively increased the size of his business. So those are the kind of results we've been focusing on for our productive entrepreneur coaching, which I want to start scaling as well.
Yeah, right. And in terms of tracking, what can the Pavlok track? For example, can it track sleep and exercise?
It can track sleep. And as of today, we have a new beta firmware which can track step counts. So within about 2 weeks, it'll be able to vibrate your wrist, beep your wrist, and zap you if you haven't stood up in long enough or if you haven't hit your daily step goal. So sleep tracking and step tracking is built into it. And my most favorite integration is our Chrome extension, which tracks your productivity. So if you're wasting time on unproductive websites, it'll start to warn you, vibrate you, zap you for wasting time online.
And how would it know that you're doing that?
It's a Chrome extension, so it knows what you're doing in your web browser, and you program in the amount of minutes you want to spend maximum on each website.
But what if it's a website that it's not a waste of time of?
Well, you wouldn't program it in then.
Okay, got you. So you actually program the particular sites in?
Yeah, there's 2 ways to use it. There's also, have you ever heard of Rescue Time?
You mentioned it before about the productivity app.
Yeah, it's a little app you install on your computer that gives you a productivity score, and it has like a big database of like things like docs.google.com is very productive, and things like facebook.com is unproductive, and you can customize it for yourself. And that app gives you a score between 0 and 100. So within our Chrome extension, you can either program in your own websites, or you can use the rescue time integration. So what happens for me is that my rescue time integration, if I'm being relatively unproductive, less than 50% over the last half hour, it'll beep me. If I've been less than 30% productive, it'll zap me. But if I've been 80% productive or more, it'll give me a vibration. So I consider that a positive reinforcer. So I try to get myself into that 80% vibration sensation and then keep myself there all day. And that becomes kind of this really cool, like, bubble, like a loop of productivity, that when I get myself into that positive state, I stay there. So that, again, it's all adjustable and programmable through the rescue time integration, but that's customizable for each user.
Yeah, that sounds great. So what other apps do you integrate with?
We integrate with Apple Health, and we integrate with If This Then That. So through that, we're able to integrate with basically everything. Set your location and say, if I go near McDonald's, give me a zap. Or Fitbit, if I haven't hit my daily step goal, start to beat me. There's infinite things that you can do with If This Then That and with Apple Health. And so we tend to use those too.
Okay. And so do you actually integrate with Fitbit as well?
Through If This Then That, yes.
Okay, great. And then you mentioned that you can track sleep. How accurate is it? Say, you also mentioned that you use the Oura Ring, so I figure it's not as accurate as the Oura Ring?
Yeah, Pavlok 2 doesn't have a heart rate monitor, unfortunately, the one that we sell. So the Oura Ring does, which gives it slightly better sleep tracking. But the thing I found that's more important is often waking up in light sleep. And so I would say Oura Ring is better for tracking for sure. But it's not an alarm, so it doesn't really change anything. It just gives you a score. So I found that the majority of our users actually use it for waking up early. Pavlok kind of has this really cool technique where it tracks your sleep cycles, and it knows when you're in light sleep. And it gives you a vibration, somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes before your alarm time, so you wake up in light sleep. You have 1 minute to get out of bed and do jumping jacks, or else it gives you a zap. So that tends to get people up, jumping, running out of bed, rather than being lazy and hitting snooze a bunch of times. So I think of it more like an alarm clock than number one most accurate sleep tracker, for sure.
Wow. And so how customizable is it? So, for example, let's say some of our athletes out there might say, okay, I'm going to set some, habits that I want to implement in my daily life. So I'm going to have a gratitude journal. I'm going to make sure that I get 8 hours sleep. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this type of exercise every day. And all of this information comes in. And then can they allocate the money? You mentioned the betting app. Are they able to allocate that money to go to charity or to go to someone, or how does that all work?
They win it for themselves at this point. But we don't have bets for fitness at this moment. At this moment, we have morning routine bets and gratitude bets, and we're slowly expanding that as we're finding users. So people make bets about they're filling out their gratitude journal, and they'll make bets about completing their morning routine by 10 a.m. So their morning routine can be arbitrary. They can type in things and program in that they've done them. So as we get longer and longer, for example, with step tracking that we're adding, our goal is to have like groups of people who make bets against each other out who will walk more steps, and the winner wins. If you and your mom are betting who's going to walk more steps, you'll be competing against each other. Things like that are sort of what we're adding. And we just recently added a group coaching program where there's like 5 people in a specific group who are all committing to daily tasks, and they'll take photos of them achieving each task, and they win when they complete their tasks from the other people. So they actually win money for themselves.
Great. And are you also connected with an app like Venmo or something so that they can all pay each other?
It's through a point system right now, but I think in the next 3 weeks it'll be through PayPal.
Wow, that's excellent. So where to from here? What other sort of things haven't you mentioned that you might sort of integrate with or implement into the Pavlok Free?
Yeah, so my big goal with Pavlok is that we really want to be the device that makes it so when you commit to tasks, you do them. That's the core. All the stuff I've been talking about is features, and they're all important, but they're not really the core goal of really making people feel like they're in control of what they do. I think that a lot of times these days we're stuck by distractions and we start new stuff but don't finish them. And our real ultimate goal is to get that to stop. So I think the biggest thing I've been looking at is our coaching program, which is really helping people massively shift their lives and not just like give up after a few days, if you know what I mean. So one of the things I'm really excited about focusing on is kind of growing our coaching program, not just to entrepreneurs, but also to people who are trying to make like habit changes in their lives. start helping them sleep better, start helping them drink more water, start helping them eat healthy and exercise daily. I think those big 6 habits I mentioned to you I think if we helped every single person in the world do those big 6, I think that a large percentage, if not a majority, of mental illness would disappear like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so,
I mean, I totally agree with you. And I guess my next question is with the coaching side of things. Like, for example, I run a company. We have a lot of health coaches that basically help people implement these types of habits. Could they, if their clients had a Pavlok, could they be the coach and get access to their data? Or do they have to be a special Pavlok coach?
100%. We have one of our core values at Pavlok is never attack, always attach. We don't see ourselves as a competitor to anybody, but we see ourselves as contributors to people. And so what we've done is we've created this coaching program plus the wearable to be kind of like eventually it'll be like a SaaS product, like the other coaches can use with their own clients, including customizing the wearable itself so that they can have their own app and their own wearable. So now they have their own, like your health coach named Julie has the Julie device, and her users can get a Julie device that has her own branding, her own colors, her own design, as well as her own back end that she can monitor her clients. So that's the ultimate goal. What we have right now is a coaching program that runs through our server. And so if you have health coaches who are interested, I'd love to talk to them. They could be a beta tester of our SaaS product, of course. But yeah, I think that like in a lot of ways, the coaching program is going so well. And I think Pavlok, its original tagline was the personal coach on your wrist. I see it as integral to coaching change. I think that in the moment daily accountability is more important, is as important, if not more important than, weekly calls with recommendations. And so I'd like to be able to get our system to be able to help more people achieve more goals.
That's great. I'm very excited. And I'm also interested in how many people return the Pavlok, because I think, is it true that you offer a 180-day money-back guarantee?
We do offer a 180-day money-back guarantee. I think probably about 8 to 10% of people return it. We've had issues in the past with our hardware that kind of broke, so we fixed them all. So that's really massively dropped our return rate. And recently, a lot of people, we tell people that Pavlok is designed to help you break bad habits in less than a month. And if you break your bad habit in less than a month and want to send it back, that's okay. So we have a lot of users who are successful users who send it back, which is interesting. But I don't mind because my goal is to help more people change habits. And so I think our return rate is somewhere between 8 and 10%.
Wow. And I'm assuming it's got Bluetooth?
Yeah, it uses Bluetooth.
Okay. And so is it going to become one of those devices that you potentially won't need to wear another wearable?
Depends. Pavlok 3 will have a screen and kind of mimic the Apple Watch. But what we're doing this year is we're releasing a Pavlok watch strap. So this isn't ready until at least April, more likely May. But imagine the Apple Watch. Not everybody wants to wear 2 things on their wrist. So we created an Apple Watch strap. So it goes on the bottom of your Apple Watch, but the Pavlok goes on the top. And the Apple Watch goes on the top, but the Pavlok goes on the bottom. So now we're completely integrated into one piece of wearable. Our goal is to create this watch strap so we can release analog watches and have other people integrated with whatever they're already wearing. Somebody has created a necklace as well as a neck collar for Pavlok. So you can wear it like on your arm, you can wear it on your leg. So I don't want to be a wrist wearable forever because I think that there's lots of spots on your body. But I think it's up to the user. If a user wants to buy, we'll release multiple versions, some with screens, some without, so users can customize it as they want.
And presumably you wear it to bed so you can track your sleep.
Yep.
Does it have an option to turn off the Bluetooth at night?
You can turn off Bluetooth, but it doesn't have airplane mode until April. So April will have airplane mode so you can completely turn off Bluetooth. At this moment, it uses low energy Bluetooth, which basically has no outbound energy, but it has passive incoming energy. So basically from how people think of like the Oura Ring without using Bluetooth, it doesn't do that at this moment, but it will in April. But from actual signals that are being sent through the air. It doesn't release any signals unless it's already connected to your phone.
Got you. Okay. Is it likely that you might integrate with Oura Ring?
Yeah, if they have an API, I've been looking into it. So we want to integrate with everything. Our goal is to be a complete integration source.
Great. And what about Garmin?
Everything. I mean, again, this is all stuff that takes a long time to build. APIs take a long time to build. But anything that's done through IFTTT, which I believe Garmin is through IFTTT, we can already integrate with.
Great. Excellent. So that's the Pavlok. Is there anything before we move on that you'd mention about Pavlok?
No, I mean, I think that the core here is that if anybody's interested in the product, they should, or especially in our coaching, I think our coaching is the thing that is having the most value these days. I'm very curious to having people, shoot me an email, or I can create a little special landing page for anybody who's interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Or email me and I'll put you in touch. But I think that's great. And I'd love to see where that goes. And I can really see that being an excellent coaching tool. So tell us about your other product, the clock.
Shot clock is the same as Pavlok, honestly. It's the same hardware, but we've limited it to just the alarm clock features. So Pavlok 2 has all of the features of the shot clock, except it also adds on habit tracking and habit change stuff.
Gotcha.
They're basically the same.
Right. Okay.
If anybody if anybody orders Pavlok and if anybody is interested in shot clock or Pavlok, if you buy the shot clock and then shoot me an email, I can upgrade you to the Pavlok from the software. So anybody listening on this post, just shoot me an email at Maneesh@pavlok.com and say upgrade, and I can help you get that done.
Perfect. So hackthesystem.com, you write about different sort of life hacks and everything else. What would be your 3 sort of top long-term fitness and health life hacks if you had to narrow it down?
Yeah, I think that the core fitness and health hacks would be, I don't like to call them hacks anymore because it's really about change.
Yep.
Sleep 7+ hours a night and write down what you're going to do tomorrow and then do it. That's it.
Cool.
And then third is wear Pavlok.
Excellent. So you think they're the 2 things. And when you say write down what you're going to do tomorrow, do you narrow that down to like one thing?
I write down 3 things every night before I go to bed. And then my coach makes sure I do them or else I lose $100. So ever since I started doing that, I've done everything I committed to and my results have skyrocketed. And
so you lose $100. Where does that $100 go to?
It goes to my coach. In the past, it was actually my salary. So I would make $50 a day when I did my tasks and I would lose $100 a day if I didn't. Right now, it just goes to my coach. But it's a non-issue because I haven't lost in years. So
your coach is going broke in the meantime.
Yeah, she still gets paid.
Awesome. Look, that's great. And I've got to ask you one more question. It's a bit of a personal question. But before I do, is there anything else that we haven't discussed that you'd like to mention?
No, that's great.
Okay, excellent. Well, I've got to ask you, Maneesh, do you have a tattoo?
I do.
Let me guess. Pavlok related?
Yeah, my team convinced me.
No way. What is it?
It's a lightning bolt, the shape of a letter P. It's the Pavlok logo on my upper arm.
On your upper arm, so sort of around your bicep area?
Yeah, more or less, around the shoulder. My team, when I was originally starting the company in 2013, all came to meet, and 5 of us got tattoos together. And then since then, 2 of our customers have gotten Pavlok tattoos. So I kind of think that if people are willing to tattoo my company's logo on their body, they're, pretty much super fans.
Well, maybe the tattoo will be able to send the shock soon.
Someday, under the skin.
Excellent. It won't be too far away. Look, thank you so much, Maneesh, for coming on. Really appreciated everything. I'll put everything in the show notes, including where everyone can buy the Pavlok. Where's the best place for them to go to buy it?
Pavlok.com, for sure.
Perfect.
And if you use code, here, I'll drop you a special code. If you use code AliWatts, one word, it'll be 15% off.
Awesome. That's AliWatts, Ali Watts, and 15% discount. Awesome. Thank you very much, Maneesh. Appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Definitely great to talk to you.
You too. For all the resources and show notes from today's episode, please go to www.ali.fitness. If you liked today's episode, please show your appreciation by going to iTunes, give us a 5-star review and subscribe.